Canada's getting a big boost in EV battery production. Volkswagen picked St. Thomas, Ontario to be the German automaker's first overseas battery manufacturing plant. It's the latest electric vehicle announcement orchestrated in cooperation with the federal and provincial governments. François-Philippe Champagne is the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. Minister, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, David. It's a big day for Canada.
Well, how big of a day, Minister? How many jobs do you anticipate this new facility is going to bring to St. Thomas, Ontario?
Well, listen, this is historic. This is really a home run for Canada. It's probably the largest single investment we've ever seen in the auto sector in the history of Canada. And it's also, the first gigafactory of Volkswagen outside of Europe. So the fact that they've chosen Canada, it's a huge vote of confidence for Canada. It's a big vote of confidence in our auto sector, but it's also a big vote of confidence in our auto workers. And I want to thank them because it's always thanks to their know-how, expertise, and excellence that you can land these big deals that are going to be transformational. This is not just like another announcement. This is like a new chapter, I would say, in the auto industry in Canada. We've been trying to have European car manufacturers to invest in Canada for decades. And now, not only we secured one, but we secured Volkswagen. We secured it in the vehicle of the future. And it put Canada at the forefront of green mobility. So big home run for Canada today.
But again, the question of how many jobs, Minister, when we saw a similar announcement in Windsor, it was about 2,500 jobs and maybe 5,000 indirect jobs throughout the supply chains. Flavio Volpe is suggesting that this announcement would be in the same ballpark. Is that what we're talking about here, roughly?
I think you're very right. I mean, that's why I don't want to go ahead of what Volkswagen has been telling today. We want, obviously, you to come to the announcement and make sure that the viewers will have the full picture. But obviously, when you look at Gigafactory, and it's not my word, it's their word, it just gives you a bit of the size. You're talking about hundreds of football fields. You're talking about a facility of a size and magnitude that we have rarely seen in Canada. And the fact that they chose St. Thomas, they chose Ontario, it's a testament to what we can do. And also, like you said, this is jobs for decades to come because those are huge plants that are going to be providing employment, not only at the plant, but you have to think in the whole ecosystem because when you have one of these big manufacturers which comes to Canada, they bring all their supply chain with them. And so that's a lot of opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses at a time where, we want to expand and build our automotive industry in Canada for being the supplier of choice in green mobility. This is coming at the right time, and I would say is historic.
We know that to get similar facilities in Canada, it's cost money. There's a federal investment of some sort in this. What's the federal share of the contribution to setting up the Volkswagen facility in St. Thomas?
Well, I've always seen it in that sector and others. Governments have to be part of the equation. It's true in the United States. It's true in Europe. It's true in Canada. But I will tell you something, David, you can never win on the money. We know that other jurisdictions are willing to put more on the table. Where we win is around the talent, around the ecosystem, the strength of our ecosystem, the critical minerals, and the fact that proximity is key now as supply chain are becoming more regional and a lot of emphasis on resiliency. Renewable energy, because I think that the manufacturers are going from electric to green vehicle. And lastly, I would say the access to market. I never present Canada as a market of 38 million consumers, but one which gives access to 1.5 billion consumers because we're the only G7 country with a free trade agreement with all the other G7 countries. So this is really, how can I say, when you're trying to build the ecosystem of the future, having a Volkswagen, it sends a huge message to everyone else who wants to join in the battery ecosystem in Canada. Bloomberg ranks us second already, and I think an announcement like that is going to be key for us to continue to attract significant investments in the country.
Now, clearly the fundamentals have to be strong or they don't even put you on their list of places for considerations, and Canada has done well in this. But to reverse engineer the answer again, I guess, the Windsor contribution was about $500 million. Are we looking at similar ballpark for this contribution? I know you want to wait for the announcement, but we do have some details today.
Well, listen, we always are fully transparent, but as we're talking to a lot of different players in the ecosystem, those numbers are commercially sensitive, as you appreciate. My role is to negotiate on behalf of Canadians and make sure we get the best possible deal. today is one step. There'll be many other steps where we can announce, and certainly, as we always do, to disclose these numbers in due course. But like I said, this is really, really something that we should be celebrating, because when you try to build an ecosystem like we've been doing, the fact that you have a player like Volkswagen, who had a choice to go anywhere in the world, by the way. Every jurisdiction would want a gigafactory for Volkswagen. And the fact that they said Canada is the place where we're going to put our first overseas gigafactory is quite something. And in the words of the Group CEO of Volkswagen, Oliver, he said, Canada is the logical choice. And I remember going to their headquarters in Wolfsburg and speaking to 500 of their top managers. This was quite a moment, and this has been months in the making, and I want to thank our colleagues in Ontario. This has really been a Team Canada effort, because trust me, there's a lot of work in landing one of these transformational investment in our country.
And I can appreciate the commercial sensitivity, and you're dealing with a company on this, but there's going to be an announcement of at some point on how much money we're actually investing, right? Just for transparency.
As always.
Canadians. So when can we expect to hear that, sir?
Well, in due course, because like I said, we are having discussion with a number of players in the ecosystem, and for now, this is commercially sensitive. But as always, David, we always disclose that these informations in due course, and Canadians will have a chance to see that. But I'm sure viewers appreciate that as you're trying to negotiate many other things at the same time to build the ecosystem, it would not be judicious at this point to disclose that, but that will be disclosed in due course. But you can already see the size of investments that we have been generating and the attraction that this is going to have in the whole ecosystem.
So while you're trying to attract companies like Volkswagen to come here, you're getting a lot of competition from south of the border because of the measures in the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, which is targeting really the same sort of industries that you have been targeting as minister. With the budget coming up, how aggressive, how big of a response should Canadians anticipate to keep Canadians on as close to an equal competitive footing as we can be with a behemoth like the United States?
Well, in fact, you're quite right. I think in the last fall economic statement, what we said to Canadians is that we would make sure that we keep a level playing field with the United States, that we would be selective, and I think that's what you're seeing today. But I would say, David, when you're Canada, you can never win on the money. You're quite right. There's other jurisdictions who are willing to put more. So that's why we need to put a lot of emphasis on the talent, the skills of our workers, on the renewable energy, on the fact that I think, we're moving from pure electric to green. And just to mention another piece of news, you may have seen earlier, I think it was last week, where BMW announced that all the aluminum needed for the manufacturing of their cars in North America will come from Saguenay, Quebec, from Rio Tinto, LSS, which is the greenest aluminum. So it's really, I think the world, is understanding that Canada can be the green supplier of choice in many industries, and that is really making a difference, because they're not looking at short-term subsidies. They're making a bet for the next 50 years, and I think in that, Canada stands out with a lot of stability, predictability, and the fact that we can be a strategic partner with critical minerals for generations to come.